Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Arjun Vishwanathan, and I'm the Chief Knowledge Officer at Strategink. Today's webinar is pretty much about how we are at a fascinating inflection point. Over the past few years, enterprises have invested heavily in AI, pilots, proofs of concept, innovation labs, and so on and so forth. And yet, perhaps what we've also seen is that for most organizations, the real question continues to remain unanswered. Why does AI struggle to scale? Because in many ways, scaling AI is not just a technology problem. It's an architectural problem, it's a data problem, and most importantly, it's a business ownership problem. Today's conversation around driving AI-first transformation from core to edge is really about confronting that gap, moving from experimentation to execution, from isolated success to enterprise-wide impact. In the first panel with two eminent CIOs, we will go beyond and into lived experience, what actually breaks when AI moves into production from pilots, and what holds it back, and what finally enables it to scale. I'm joined by a fantastic set of practitioners who are not just thinking about AI, but in many ways building it, deploying it, and learning from it real time. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome. My name is Arjun Vishwanathan, and I'm the Chief Knowledge Officer at Strategink. And today we have the privilege of welcoming all of you to what promises to be a fascinating webinar discussing a very critical theme around the whole concept of driving AI-first transformation from core to edge. One of the reasons this particular webinar has been designed and such as is being sponsored by Dell Technologies and Redington and put together with Strategink is because we're at a defining inflection point where AI, really, ladies and gentlemen, is no longer a layer on top of the enterprise. It is increasingly, if you look at it, becoming the enterprise by itself. In that sense, what becomes very, very important for many organizations is the journey from experimentation to scale. But there is where the problem lies, because that journey from experimentation to scale is being slowed down by fragmented architectures, siloed data, and unclear operating models. Driving AI-first transformation is a conversation that I am privileged to be joined by two very, very eminent folks from within industry, leaders in their own right and their own might. Please put your hands together to welcome Pankaj Sharma, Head of IT at HiCal Limited. Pankaj, welcome. A delight to have you with us.
Thanks, Arjun.
And Naval Kumar Lat, Chief Technology Officer, Information Technology at Axis Finance. Naval, welcome and delightful to have you here with us, sir.
Thank you very much and look forward.
Thank you. Naval, I'm going to directly jump to you. And one of the very important questions that we have around the centrality of this theme is really that this whole conversation about moving from experimentation to scale or moving from pilot to production, which is most organizations don't, if you think about it, struggle with AI. They struggle to scale it. In your experience, therefore, and given your very wide experience, what fundamentally do you think breaks down when moving from pilot to production? And why do so many initiatives precisely stall at that exact point?
Sure. So when we take on the AI journeys, trying to solve a particular business case, business use case, the basic premise is basically it has to be the requirements and how do that particular initiative going to help achieve the ROI. So of course, ROI capture is the most important thing. And then we will have to basically map the requirements. And when we start preparing for it, like basically we will have to take into consideration multiple aspects. So first and foremost important is of course data. Second that will come in picture is of course governance and risk. Third most important is this organization. Basically, how do we propagate this idea? How do we make people use of start using the AI in the best way? So these are primarily the three important basically aspects one should be focusing on when we start the journey. Of course, it starts with the requirements. We will have to ensure basically, and there we fail majority of the time is having the clean data. Basically what happens, the data is scattered across multiple systems, multiple core
Indeed.
systems, right? It is basically fragmented. So when it comes to basically putting the journey together, it has to interface, integrate with multiple systems. The data has to be clean. There has to be proper validations at the entry level itself. And these validations are built over the period of time. So there is a
Over a period of
possibility.
time.
There is a possibility the data may not be correct or clean in the storage or data base layer. So that is definitely one of the most important point. Then, of course, when we do scaling, the capacity is most important because when we do run pilots, it is on a standalone kind of a smaller setups. It may not have been sized for the scale and the performance which is expected. So most importantly, what kind of transactions expected, what kind of number of users, transactions it is sized for, and whether it is properly tuned, whether my infrastructure which is been provisioned, are they fully capacitized? So these are the most important actually factors. And last one, but not the least, is of course organization. That comes like basically the people for which, or the team on the ground for which we are deploying this journey, so that we can improve the efficiency, we can reduce the tax. They have to be fully trained, they have to be fully made aware. Uh, we will have to make, of course, journeys more idiot proof so that they will not make data entry mistakes or otherwise, or workflow mistakes. So these are the most important factors. And the very last is clear business ownership. So business has to be fully aligned. They have to be fully convinced why we are doing this. So that is the reason when I first started the ROI piece. The ROI, what are we going to get out of it? What are we going to achieve? There has to be a clear business buy-in, and business has to be completely aligned.
I couldn't
Once,
agree with you more, Naval, because I find this very fascinating that you've mentioned this, and I'm going to take this to Pankaj. Pankaj, Naval made an interesting point, and I kind of incrementally bring that to you. See, AI adoption in India has been fantastic. It has been brilliant. But
Right.
similarly, the truth also is that pilots have been great, but scale hasn't. So, in many, many ways, do you feel that the failure is in part also due to the fact that we don't know where we want to go with AI, or we haven't thought it through enough?
Yes, definitely. So, like not only AI, like any other project, the thought process has to be clear. As Naval also highlighted, the business objective, we have to be very clear. What are the milestones we are trying to achieve? So, one of the biggest disconnect is it becomes an IT priority to deliver the POC.
Indeed.
So, IT team did a fabulous job. They identified the right set of data, curated it, and we did a highly successful POC. But
Indeed.
when it moves to the production, now we are talking about a different data sets. Data which is raw, being generated directly from the maybe PLCs, SCADA, sensors, depending on the kind of use case we are talking about. So I'm from the manufacturing industry, so I will do more from those. So unless and until you touch the source where the data is being generated, and you create and curate those data from the first hand, because in the traditional fashion, the sensors are generating maybe 100 different fields or data sets. But the person concerned, the operator today, is only using 10 sets of data out
Yeah,
of this entire
that's true.
data. So
That
he's
is true.
focusing only on those 10. Whenever you ask them for say, testing or say, cleaning the data, he'll focus only on that particular set of data.
So
But
true.
the AI is talking about the collective data sets. Now that is where a big change happens. And the moment it goes into the production, 10 days or maybe 1 month into the production, the kind of data deviation is so much that the business loses their interest. So because it becomes like a management decision which has forced an IT team to deliver an AI project. So instead, it has to be a business-driven decision making, and they have to own their data as well.
right,
IT team would be there to help them with cleaning with the data. We'll help them say process the data. We can re-engineer their processes, clean the data. What kind of guardrails have to be there? We can highlight, support them. But at the end of the day, running the process owning the deliverables have to be done by the business. Unless until that is there, almost all the production scale-ups will fail.
I said I couldn't agree with you more, Pankaj, and I think both of you have just put together a very supreme narrative and an articulation of where the real problem lies. Now, I'm going to bring this back to you. Therefore, because you also spoke about architecture, and so did Pankaj speak about infrastructure. In your sense, therefore, if you were to look at the four pillars of a successful AI initiative scaling, the four being data readiness, that's number one. The second being infrastructure, the third being talent, and the fourth being organizational alignment and readiness. Would you therefore, in many, many ways, say between data readiness and architecture is where the real technology problem lies?
Definitely, yes. Because you have to marry very, very clearly both infrastructure as well as database, because that is going to be the foundation for building any of your AI journey. So these are the two very, very critical and important layers. The way we build those pipelines of ingestion of the data, which is needed for building the AI journey. Example, like data lake houses. A lot many organizations are now started implementing data lake houses, which is powering the multiple AI journey, be it a customer service, be it collections teams, because I am from a lending organization. So customer service, collections, risk, etc. All these journeys, whatever we are trying to build, data is a foundational layer. It is a base. And of course, the infrastructure where it is being hosted, it has to be properly tuned, configured, parameterized so that it can handle the scale and the volume to deliver the business expectations. So, at most important, of course, we should make right choices, and we should have the design properly assessed, reviewed, and implemented.
Couldn't agree more. Pankaj, bringing that again back to you. As the head of IT, as a senior IT leader with so many years of experience, when it is the imperative within the organization is for AI to scale, for operations and business transformation to truly happen. As a CIO, as a head of IT, how would you kind of balance the priorities between data readiness, infrastructure? Because talent and organizational alignment is something that perhaps may even happen organically. But core IT is going to have to manage both data readiness because of the vast volumes of data that you have and the infrastructure that needs to cope and address the capacitization of the data. How would you balance this as a CIO?
So first thought would be with the infrastructure and the design part of it. So
True.
Look into those factors. In the best case scenario, what will be the data size which we are talking about? What kind of compute is required? Unless and until my design itself is scalable. So today we might be talking about AI use cases in piecemeal fashion, but tomorrow, so it is imperative that we will be having hundreds and thousands of agents. So our architecture should be ready for those kind of scales. Otherwise, what will happen? Say we have a few use cases or say few agents running in HR, few running in the marketing, and these two are running using different data sets or maybe using different solutions. So unless until we have thought through this process, we have thought through how these things would be integrated and leverage the accuracy and the data models, we'll have to do away with those designs maybe in a couple of years and redo the entire thing once again. Because as the models evolve, we are talking about futuristic things, the use cases which we were not being able to say visualize 3 years down the line.
Indeed.
So today we are at the cusp of such a technological breakthrough that we have to be very vigilant. We have to ensure that we are not creating another silos for AI.
That's actually interesting because Naval, I'm going to bring this back to you, and given your wide and vast experience, what are the 3 or 4 pieces of very essential prescriptive guidance you will pass on to an emerging generation of IT leaders and CIOs and CXOs on how to go about navigating this journey towards integrated architecture across compute, data, and edge, thereby enabling them a more seamless journey from fragmented AI experience to enterprise-wide deployment? what is your essential guidance?
Yeah, when we talk about basically the compute, the data, and the edge where the journeys are running, the basic premise of what we are building, the requirements, they have to be fully thought of. Then, whatever we are actually building in our dev environment, on our pilot environment, uh, whether it is thoroughly tested, whether all the test cases, including positive, negative scenarios, have been thought through completely.
Very
Have we
nice.
done the load tests so as to confirm and certify whatever journey we have built, whether it is able to scale and it can take the load which is expected? Third, and the most important thing is, of course, whatever integrations, whether it is with internal applications or external interfaces, any third party integrations, whether they are properly tested, whether related configurations, port openings, any other settings which is needed to be done, they are thoroughly done. So they are the most important thing. Third, of course, on data part, whether the data is clean data, whatever we are using,
No amount
it
of
is
conversations on data are enough anytime,
right,
Pankaj.
right. Then, of course, when it comes to edge, uh, whether it has been tested on whatever end devices like mobile phones or any sensor kind of devices, if it is a factory kind of a thing, whether AI is been tested using these devices in a real life scenario. I think that is most important. And whether the journeys which are built on the end computing or edge computing, whether it is ready to be work even though there is a internet or no internet, so that at least the journey, whenever the network is available, whether the infrastructure is available, whether central servers is available, they can do the posting in a
Of
later
course.
stage. So I think these are the three important aspects one should consider when building all these new journeys for our businesses.
Very profound. Pankaj, I bring that to you also. It will, along with an additional question, is obviously what is your prescriptive guidance, given that both of you are neck deep in AI deployments, respectively, at your organizations. How also, and to add this to your narrative and your articulation, how do you prepare for what you don't know about AI also?
Great. Nice twist to this. So I'll say we should always take baby steps.
Of course.
Using AI, try to solve the easiest problem first. Try to focus on the low-hanging fruits, which helps the business and the users to understand the power of AI, which helps us get the internal buy-in. Don't make it too complex for them to adopt.
Very
So
interesting.
let's start with the easiest steps. Focus, deliver the value. Once the users are accustomed to using the technology, that is where the actual business efficiency will come. Because they'll start asking the right questions. In most of the cases, when we deploy, we simply say, okay, X company has done this thing, let's try to replicate it. So it is more of a copy and paste kind of thing which we do. But once we start using that technology, once we are say fully aware of the wherewithals and the nitty-gritty of the technology, that is where the users start asking the right questions. Can
Questions.
we also do this using AI? Now, we have taken these two steps. Now, this part of the recruitment process or maybe the machine automation has been done. Now, can you also predict when the next losses are going to happen? Or maybe
Very
you can also
interesting.
predict whether this chemical will give me this kind of efficiency or the batches efficiency can be improved accordingly. So, because in the traditional IT also, we have seen, say, the basic efficiencies from the ERPs or the business analytics tools come only after a couple of years.
Of course. Of course.
Similarly for AI, so you need to be on the journey, have faith and patience in the technology. And the second part would be always get the business alignment properly. You
Properly.
cannot afford to have one business leader who is very, say, passionate about AI and the second one is not passionate at all.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, but I do have a view on the clock, gentlemen. Pankaj, just stay with me. I have a very interesting question. There used to be a time when, for most IT leaders in their own right, a lot of security related matters used to keep you awake or at least give you sleepless nights. Does the pressures that come associated with AI today equally give you sleepless nights and keep you awake, Pankaj?
Yes. So part of that question which you asked me, how do you tackle the unknown part of the AI?
Indeed.
So this is where the majority of the concerns from AI arise,
So
because
true.
the hallucination part of it. So
Indeed.
the more we tend to believe the data sets, the more impervious we become to the hallucination. So we have to be constantly objective around it. Even when the business users are claiming 90% efficiency, we could always cross check
Of course.
to revalidate.
Beautifully answered. Thank you, Pankaj. Naval, sleepless nights because security on one end, AI and the miracle of AI at the other end of the spectrum. How does that kind of go for your health?
So definitely, security is given. Like we can't escape.
Of course.
But one thing I think we are not mentioning here, like we are from NBFC, BFSI industry, so regulator, right?
Oh, the regulator.
So
How could I
regulator,
forget that?
and then a lot of buzz today is around AI and AI security, right? That is coupled with even API security. So these things, how do we basically make our solutions which are built or AI journeys which are built absolutely secure? So that's, I think, the most critical thing. And we will have to definitely budget time around this foolproofing whatever we are actually deploying, which is regulated also, as well as information security approved also, so that we'll not have any loops or gaps or holes in this.
I couldn't agree more. But gentlemen, that's the time on the clock. Naval, Pankaj, it has been nothing short of delightful and fascinating hearing you both articulate so supremely. Thank you so very much. It's been a pleasure, sir.
Thank you, Arjun.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was I, your host in segment one, with Naval Kumar Lad and Pankaj Sharma, speaking about the whole concept of driving AI first transformation from core to edge and getting it right first time. Stay with us, and we'll be back with the second segment shortly. Hi, welcome back. For the next segment, I'm joined by somebody very, very eminent to talk about a particularly fascinating theme, which is unlocking innovation, core, cloud, and edge, the new architecture. And to join me in this interesting conversation, please put your hands together to welcome Lakshmikant Kandi, subject matter expert, Western region for Dell Technologies. Lakshmi, welcome and a delight to have you with us, sir.
Pleasure to be with you, co-hosting this with you, Arjun, and nice to meet all the colleagues as well. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Lakshmi, I'm directly going to jump into it, given that we've got about 15 minutes. And this conversation essentially, perhaps for the audience, could revolve around how they can perhaps understand in a simpler fashion the mechanism of how an integrated core, cloud, and edge in terms of an architecture enables scalable real-time AI innovation. So in that sense, my real first question to you, Lakshmi, is, see, as enterprises are moving from pilots to scale, how, in your view, as an expert in this field, should they rethink architecture not as a technology stack, but as a business decision around where intelligence should reside? Looking at the core, cloud, and edge conversation.
Yeah, Arjun, I think you rightly nailed it. So when we move from a pilot to a kind of production, right? So it's no more a tech stack choice, right? So it ideally should become a business decision. And from the intelligence point, it's more on the data availability, where the data resides, the risks involved in moving data across the platforms, cost, and the latency, right? So I think these are the few things where we should look from the technology aspect, right? So what we've realized here is the closer the data could be to the AI platforms, the better is the outcome, right? So that's where we take a decision whether it should be edge on premise or it should be on the cloud, right? So ideally, We are seeing edge becoming more prominent
Indeed.
across the industries. That's where we also are encouraging customers to bring AI close to the edge. There are technologies available today, and because that brings to an important thing is where is the data getting created, right? Is it
Indeed. Indeed.
kiosk in the bank or a branch or your factory which is actually creating this the data, the IoT devices, right? So, and second question could be how fast you want to act on that data, right? Is it a real
Absolutely.
time?
How real time do you really want it?
Really want AI to act on it, or is more of preventive maintenance you want to build, which is sitting on a data at rest kind of a data, and how which environment you are, how regulatory driven constraints you have on that data, right? So is it you have to be more protective, or there are more security constraints to the data, which wherein that becomes more building more guardrails across those data platforms, right? And the second largest thing we should look at is when we are looking at scale, is the infrastructure I have planned matching that scale, right? So normally from a POC, we start with one or two nodes with GPUs, and then we build a couple of models clustered on it. But when we actually look at production, that goes to multiple nodes, right? So, and then the key thing is how do I kind of network these from a spine to leaf to spine architecture, and how do
Correct.
each of these GPUs interact each other. That plays a major role from a tech stack perspective and also the model performance perspective also. Fortunately, today there are technologies around it which can help you bridge those gaps. But from a thought process, I think we should look at those things when we look from a scale perspective.
No, it's
And
interesting that you say that, Lakshmi, because I have an ancillary question there, which is essentially you spoke about bringing data to where the AI models are. Now, in a
yeah,
world of increasing data gravity, therefore, what principles should organizations follow to decide where workloads should live, especially when they're also balancing performance, cost, as well as latency? And this
correct.
is in the context of real time or near real time or as timely as you want it.
Correct. I think that's where the application, the workloads play a major role, right? So they decide what is the, how big is the gravity is, right? So if we look at the FSIs, we are talking about their core application, core banking applications, or maybe ERP for a manufacturing, where their chunk of the data resides, right? So they bring a lot of gravity, and mostly they are on premise. So that's where their data sets lie, right? So when we look at performing from a data gravity perspective, we need to classify them where they are residing and which kind of performance these workloads are looking at. So, and then look at how do I bring AI to this data, right? So again, where the core of the data is, should I bring the training and inference close to the data, because that's your chunk of the infrastructure investment which goes in. My inferencing can be slightly kind of deferred to a different location
Correct.
because I might still want to do it. Can I bring my RAG pipelines, your CAG pipelines close to that data? That is again an on-premise decision,
Of
right?
course it
And
is.
maybe use cloud for a burst, or maybe use cloud from a kind of a experimentation point of view, because cloud gives you a lot of integrations, ready to use things. So you might still use cloud for bringing learning the models and how they behave, then bring it on premise. So from Dell's point of view, what we are looking at is if we can give a common stack on all these three layers, right? Whether it's edge, core, or on the cloud. My IP is today sitting on the cloud as well, and as a different offering. So that becomes very easy for a customer when he's moving his data across these three platforms. Also from a regulatory perspective, that makes more sense because it's a common IP which is running across these different layers. And from a cost perspective also, when you're bringing data close from the cloud to the on-premise, the egress cost or the regress cost, they
Indeed.
they can be better managed using native features of replication rather than depending on the latency or the cloud kind of feature where egress costs are higher side, right? So, and then leverage the hyperscalers for co-location where customer cannot have a better infrastructure for cooling for AI. They are ready to use kind of a platform. So use the similar infrastructure in a colo, which are better managed, and again close to your factories or the places. What so that plays a again those four questions what we earlier had: the latency, what you're looking at, the risk factor, the cost factor, scalability factor. All those things again play a role here as well.
I think very powerfully you've clearly articulated that AI scale for enterprise transformation is perhaps
Correct.
just not possible without a hybrid slash multi-cloud kind of architecture, especially if you want to look at edge intelligence. Isn't that true to the largest degree?
Correct, absolutely. And there is a good checklist for it. And I think, given the chance to speak about, we can ideally the customer should have these checklists in place when
If
we
you
are.
just highlight a couple of the pointers.
So a couple of them, what probably he should look again is from a latency point, where we should what kind of applications, what kind of latencies, what kind of real time things he should look at. What is the data sizes he's looking at, because
Of
different
course, of
applications
course.
have different data sizes. What kind of data types we are talking about. Some applications use more of a block data. Some use which are more sequential by matter, so it's easy for
True.
them to from dissecting from an AI perspective or BI perspective. But the challenge comes in more unstructured data, right? So
Very.
how do I build the entire search framework for that unstructured data using vector or synthetic searches, and how close that platform can be to that unstructured data, right? So how I'm preparing or kind of designing the entire data for that AI data pipelines is also very important. So the third could be again, as I said, risk. Again, risk could be not just a peripheral risk, but it should be from a compliance. Fortunately, today NIST is building some frameworks for AI. ISO has built some frameworks for AI. And internally, there are some best practices which most of the organizations and nodal agencies are recommending, the SEBIs of the world, the RBIs of the world, how data should be used. So I think we can keep
Indeed.
all these things as a checklist when we are deciding how do we scale it up, and that's the best way to start up. Yeah.
Wonderful. But I do have a view on the clock, Lakshmi, because there's a very important question, and I think I speak on behalf of the wide, eminent audience here. Please tell us, as a practitioner, as a subject matter expert who's neck deep in AI, pretty much 24 by 7, what does it practically take to enable real-time AI use cases at scale? And where do most organizations get it wrong when designing for the core cloud edge kind of environments? And what, in your view, is some prescriptive guidance for a new generation of folks who are entering the AI domain for their enterprises to do or slash not to do to make sure that they're getting it easier than perhaps we had it when we started it?
Correct, correct. I think it's important. So I normally look from Dell internally, because today we are close to a 120 employees using AI platform across, right?
Indeed.
And that it's a cross-functional platform which we have built. And we also have taken baby steps initially when we started with few departments being included. Now at an org-wise scale, what we have done. So I think where most of the organization rather kind of not able to put a business outcome to the AI model. The tech aspect to the business is build some measurable KPIs to the outcomes. You have use cases, and they are very beautiful use cases designed today. But if those use cases are not kind of built or tied to measurable KPIs and they are not being measured, right? So if I am building a customer experience platform, so what am I looking at it? Am I looking at a customer CSAT improve by 10%, or maybe an internal employee's CSAT improved by 20%? And if
Indeed.
that's not been measured, so then it's a continuous experiment thing, right? So at Dell, we are measuring that. And I think that's the most important thing. And the second thing which most of the customers do fail, they ignore the data pipes or the way the data is being consumed, right? So the simple fact is the garbage in, garbage out for AI, right? So fortunately or unfortunately, different platforms have kind of put data across, right? Different formats. We have used them for the speed of the business, but when we look at aggregating them, they are all in different silos, right? So how do I break those silos? Kind of use technologies which are trying to build more open format data tables that can the AI platforms can consume, right? So I
Okay.
think if we could invest on those things and bring more linearity towards the products what we have from storage perspective, the fabric perspective, and the GPU you are consuming. So that brings a very good infra layer for you, and whatever software stack you put on it works seamlessly with
On it.
this thing, right? So otherwise
So
you have the best of the AI model setting, then you have a lot of bottlenecks on the
very true.
latency of the infrastructure. I
So
think,
clearly, Lakshmi, at Dell Technologies, very exciting times ahead.
yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of and if some of you are kind of following us at GTC, the last 2 3 weeks back, there were huge announcements made on the data warehousing or the entire data lake. A lot of acquisitions. So exciting time for us, and I'm sure we will help a lot of our customers, including ourselves, to bring more insights through our data.
Thank you so very much, Lakshmi. Bang on the clock. It was delightful speaking to you as always. The
Pleasure.
wealth of
Pleasure
knowledge
is
that you
important.
bring and experience that you bring to the table is truly fascinating. Thank you so much for making time to join.
Thank you, Arjun. Pleasure is all mine. Thanks.
Thank
Bye bye.
you.
Have a
Good
nice
day.
day.
That's where we are, folks. It's been great having this conversation. And if I were to sum up what stands out from today's set of discussions, it is this: AI does not fail because of algorithms, it fails because enterprises are not designed for it. What we've heard today is fairly clear. Scaling AI demands more than just experimentation. It requires integrated architecture across core, cloud, and edge, clean, accessible data, and above all, strong business ownership. And this shift is very profound. And perhaps the most important takeaway from today is that AI at scale is not a destination, it is an operating model. I want to thank all our panelists for the candor and real world insights, and all of you for joining in today. This is just the beginning of a much larger journey towards building truly AI first enterprises. So, thank you. Have a great evening. Stay safe. God bless. This is Arjun Vishwanathan signing off. Thank you.